live on the Port's YouTube channel. I'll call for a motion and second for approval of the minutes of the regular commission meeting of August 12th, 2020.
I will move.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? I'm sorry, Pam, if you could do a roll call vote.
Yes. Commissioner Alexander,
Aye.
Kupro-Comas,
Aye.
Lamb, Levy,
Aye.
Nemi, aye. O'Halloran,
Aye.
Pierce,
Aye.
and Saruda.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll ask Curtis for the executive director's report and his remarks.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, commissioners and guests. First, I'd like to acknowledge, as the conversation leading into the meeting notes, just the fires around Oregon and Washington, and recognize that a number of Port employees and their families are currently under level 2 and level 3 evacuation orders. And I just want to let them know that our thoughts are with them, and I hope that everyone's able to stay safe and clear of danger. In a related vein, I'd like to recognize the Port's monthly safety champions, who I believe, yes, are currently on the screen. Once again, great performance from folks around the organization thinking about safety every day. As we've shared mostly through Stan's safety messages for the last several years, we've been working on maturing our safety program integration and leading metrics with businesses throughout the Port enterprise. And I want to recognize that currently the Port has 5 locations out of 10 that have been operating for over a year without an industrial injury or illness. They include complex operations with differing occupational exposures. Internally, we call these groups our zero heroes. First, the headquarters office with 542,000 hours, aviation maintenance, 204,000 hours, marine security, 36,000 hours, marine landscape, 9,000 hours, and both general aviation airports with 15,000 hours of going a year without industrial injury or illness. So many thanks to everyone out there who's really focused on safety. I do want to note aviation operations was very close, 266,000 hours, a zero hero until an injury occurred in June of this year. So we'll get them back on track and hopefully be announcing even more zero heroes next year. With that, Stan Waters, will you share a safety message with us this morning?
Glad to, Curtis. My message today is that the Port is collaborating with our construction trade partners to recognize and celebrate Construction Safety Week. Construction Safety Week is usually held in the first week of May, but was postponed to September this year because of the COVID pandemic. Every day when construction workers walk onto a job site, they know what's on the line. The work, their reputations, a paycheck, but most importantly, what's really on the line are the lives and livelihood of every person on the job site. And that's why they will do everything in their power to ensure that everyone is safe. This year's theme is built on safety. In construction, safety is a shared value and belief that the Port is aligned with. More than 70 national and global construction firms joined forces for Construction Safety Week with a single aim to inspire everyone in the industry to be leaders in safety. Safety Week is a show of force, an opportunity for people, companies, and even competitors to work together and celebrate the incredible hard work by people in the construction industry who make safety the foundation of everything they do. We join our construction partners to recognize and celebrate their efforts. We also include our engineering, airport, marine, and navigation teams in the safety conversation. This year's focus is prevention of falls. The OSHA recognized highest standard for construction workers, or highest hazard for construction workers, excuse me. Falls from roofs, scaffolding, and ladders make up 70% of the construction fall fatal injuries. Falls from structural steel and non-moving vehicles make up 7% each. And falls to a lower level not earlier defined equal 6%, and falls from the floor, dock, or ground level equal 5%. Safety stand downs, toolbox talks, and vendor product demonstrations on fall prevention will occur throughout next week to continue the safety dialogue, raise awareness to new tools, and celebrate safety successes. That was my message for this month, Curtis, but I also, for the home, and especially now because of the fires that are affecting so many in our neighboring communities, I also just want to mention that September is also National Preparedness Month. I know that I have talked before how important it is to be prepared. These fires really bring home the need to have an emergency plan and to be prepared. More information on National Preparedness Month can be found at www.ready.gov. And I do hope and pray that all of our employees that are affected by these fires are prepared and will be safe. Thanks, Curtis.
Good, Stan. Thank you. And my wife and I were just talking this morning. She has family and friends in Ashland where she grew up, and we were talking about having a go bag ready. This is another example of the usefulness, not just for earthquake preparedness, but general emergency preparedness, to have a bag ready that has supplies in it that you'll need, prescriptions, copies of important documents. And so it's a good time to remember to build or put together a go bag and have one ready in your garage or in your basement or under the stairs or wherever you keep things in case of emergency. So thank you for the message. The fires seem to be just piling on, as if there's not enough going on already in people's lives and disruption. But like all of you, you're probably answering phone calls from loved ones and friends around the country asking if you're safe, as Portland finds itself in the center of national dialogue on race and violence. And while we understand that the picture being painted about Portland lacks a significant amount of local context, it's also true that what is happening in this region impacts so many of us mentally and emotionally. At the Port, we continue to offer weekly conscious conversations for our employees to help share perspective and process the anti-racism conversation. This week, we're bringing in a culturally specific counselor to provide ideas on healing and help us understand what that involves as we move forward to address institutional racism together. So for Port employees, I hope you'll join us this week. At PDX, August was the best month of employment since the start of the pandemic, which of course isn't saying a whole lot, with traffic down about 71% versus being down 74% in July. And while we anticipated a bump in traffic over the Labor Day holiday weekend, we anticipate a softening of demand later in September. We continue to manage health safety protocols, including distancing, face covering requirements, cleaning, and limiting access to help keep travelers and PDX workers safe. We did, however, get some good news last week on some important direct flights. On September 1st, Alaska Airlines began a new route from Portland to Denver. And during a time when a lot of airlines are cutting flights, we're really grateful that Alaska continues to see Portland as an important market. While our airline partners have confirmed that transoceanic service will remain suspended through 2020, we are hopeful looking toward next spring. Delta has announced plans to bring year-round nonstop service back to both Tokyo and Amsterdam in March of 2021. And Condor Airlines has said that they plan to resume nonstop service between Portland and Frankfurt in spring of 2021. On the marine side, while auto imports and exports are still down significantly this year, we saw positive increases in July and August. And while we don't have official August data yet, our scheduled auto vessel calls went from 5 in July to 10 in August. So some hopeful numbers there. At PDX Next, we had a pretty substantial review last month. I do want to note 3 exciting and diverse new artists who've been awarded commissions at PDX: Perez Westbrooks, DeWitt Godfrey, and Ben Butler. Perez Westbrook's colorful new piece is for the rental car ticket lobby. Titled Rise and Shine, it represents Portland moving in new directions, embracing new cultures and opportunities for growth. DeWitt Godfrey is creating a large-scale sculpture for the shuttle turnaround between the short and long-term parking garages. Ben Butler's work is inspired by nature. Butler's new piece, titled Growth, will be a new landmark for pedestrians walking from PDX to the new rental car center. Together with Jacob Hashimoto's Flying Kites and the commission of an interactive mural from regional artist Ryan Feddersen, the commissioning of these 3 new artists brings the total number of new permanent art installations at PDX from 0 to 5. And finally, in response to the public comment received from the Portland Harbor Community Advisory Group, I'll just note Willamette Cove is a particularly complex site due to its history and the level of community interest in accessing it for recreation and more. We've talked about it in commission in the past. We have received a milestone on this site with DEQ having just concluded their public comment period to select a final remedy for the Willamette Cove upland site. The Port, Metro, who's the current landowner, and DEQ have worked for over 2 decades to get to this point. It's all rather exhausting. Both for the port and for the community, I know. With the public comment period now concluded, we are awaiting DEQ's decision so that we can get started on the work needed to clean up the site. We've worked with PHCC in recent years to increase and diversify public engagement around the site's history and the cleanup, and we look forward to further collaboration. And that, Madam President, is the extent of my remarks this morning. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Curtis. I'll ask for a motion and second for approval of the executive director's report.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Pam, would you call the roll vote, please?
Commissioners Alexander,
Aye.
Kupro-Comas,
Aye.
Lamb,
Aye.
Levy,
Aye. Aye.
Nemi,
Aye.
O'Halloran,
Aye.
Pierce,
Aye.
and Saruda.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Having received no public comments for this meeting, I'll move on to our first and only action item of this meeting, and call on Curtis to discuss his fiscal year 2021 performance objectives.
Terrific. Thank you, Madam President. Commissioners, as you know, we have a review process for on an annual basis. It includes port employees, but also the executive director. I've really viewed these in the past as a proxy for the organization as a whole, but I also consider it my own personal objective. So really what this is intended to do is to share with you the priorities of the port and of me personally for the year ahead. So fiscal year 2021, beginning July 1st of this year through June 30 of next. And as similar to the last few years, I've really tried to base the objectives listed for you in the context of our port strategic plan, the 3 core items of the strategic plan: building an airport for the future, revitalizing the marine business, and really leveraging our strengths to create a more equitable and prosperous region. In addition, we have a 4th item, which is really about my personal objectives as a leader and a professional. As in years past, I try to work on those areas and discuss with you the action items that I hope to undertake as a leader inside the organization. So this year, similarly, we are have those same 4 categories, but you'll note in what is really a strange time around COVID and the pandemic, and likely an economic recession that will follow and is already beginning, you'll note a lot more focus on dealing with the day-to-day and getting through the pandemic. So what I'd like to do is just run through these topic areas for you. And Madam President, I'm happy to stop in the middle and so or take questions at the end. What I'd suggest is I'll take a pause at the end of each of these segments and see if there are any comments or additions or proposed changes, and otherwise we'll just whip through these in order, if that's okay with you, Madam President.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. That sounds fine.
Great. So first, build an airport for the future. This is really about focusing on PDX, our largest asset, again, about 2/3 of the economic impact of the port, as well as our revenue. The objective stays the same. The outcome, however, actually the objective is really shifted a bit, including COVID, and recognizing now what last year's objective included, terminal balancing, the E-concourse extension, and now that that is concluded really focusing on the ones that are in front of us today. The outcome that we're hoping for is a stable operation managing through this crisis and positioning ourselves to grow out the other side as we continue construction, but also prepare for recovery. So the action items are pandemic recovery, really supporting our staff through the restart and what we hope will be a rapid recovery. But like many of you and having gone through this before, these recoveries can take years and affect many lives. So really thinking about pandemic and coming out the backside of this. Second, the detailed T-core design. Terminal core is really the main terminal center. My role is really providing high-level guidance on the project, working with Vince Granato and the project team, as well as the business partners involved to review the big picture look and feel, decisions about how the project comes together and timing. And that is still primarily in design phase. And then finally, executive sponsorship, really maintaining relationships with our key business partners and support the return of both air service to the facility, but also this exit from what is really crisis today to what we hope is regrowth in the future. So I'll pause there. Any comments or feedback on these items, commissioners? I welcome them.
Curtis, I'll start. I guess I've been really encouraged as we've been in the pandemic mode about how both you and your staff talk about building back better. And so I want to make sure that as we think about building an airport for the future and the action items, that pandemic recovery isn't just an opportunity to return to where we were pre-pandemic, but to build back better and to really think about both the community and the community's asset here as we look at pandemic recovery. So again, not just thinking about employments once people can travel again, but about the whole picture.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's probably in that first bullet, pandemic recovery. And we have been talking about building back better, in particular as we connect the project to our operations. And so that's a change. I'm certainly happy to add that into that first bullet. I think it's a great call out.
Other commissioners?
Madam President, I would underscore your comments. And Curtis, the other thing that I appreciate is that the way that these objectives are set up, they do allow us to look at current challenges, but also the long-term projection on growth, sustainability, and expansion of the mission of the port. So quite often you look at these plans and there's an expectation that we're looking at 12 months. And in some instances, we probably should be looking at 10 years. The continuity as we go from evolutionary segment to segment is important. And the way that these are framed doesn't force us to make a choice between soon versus long term. So I appreciate that.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. You know, as we've talked about, these are really, we're trying to focus the 5-year strategic plan is really about that broad vision, and these tend to be the building blocks. But you're right. I also sort of laugh at something that's in your performance objective and you take care of it in the second week of the fiscal year. And so does that mean you're not concerned about it anymore? And some of that is just the nature of these tools, right? You want it to be focused on long-term delivery, and that does mean you got to get the pieces stacked up. So I appreciate that comment. Well, Madam President, why don't I continue with the second one here, barring any other comments on the first. Revitalizing the marine business. As we've discussed, part of a journey here, really supporting our operations and business development teams to put a strategy in place that gets us to operational and market sustainability. We have made great progress. The team has done just really great work on both operations and business development. I'm very proud of the work they've done, interacting with a lot of teams inside the port, environmental, legal, finance. Really what we're looking to do here is stabilize these business flows through the pandemic, and really focus on a solid operation, worker safety, relationship management, in particular out at T6, and as always, financial sustainability. We are, I'm happy to report, profitable, but only marginally in our marine business, and that's something, as I think you all know, we continue to focus on. Second, there is really supporting a business development strategy that is looking to continue to expand container service out at T6. Really think about bringing new types of cargoes into the facility. We had a great one last year, as you'll recall, this wind tower segments. We want to see more of that kind of break bulk business, and also continue to expand our auto business, which is a business in transition. Those contracts come up, and the importers and the exporters are thinking about what they do every time, where their cars are going to land or depart. And so we'll work through that piece. And then finally, we have really important tenant relationships, in particular at T4 and T5, that will be an important part of this sustainability strategy. I should note, of course, the tenants at T6 as well, but the primary chunk of business there is the container business that we're focused on as an organization. And then finally, item number 3 here is really pushing forward on Terminal 2. As you all know, we did a highest and best use study around evaluation of options out at T2. Baseball continues to be an idea that may or may not work out there, one that we're working with the promoters of baseball to continue. They have a financial arrangement with us out there currently, but we also want to continue to look at what the future might look like, and engage with the community in that conversation around how you deliver value for the community at a site that's certainly unique and close to downtown. So I'll take a breath there on the marine business. Again, one that has seen great progress, and now really focusing, I'd say, primarily around T2 and T6.
Thanks, Curtis. From my perspective, I think these are great, call outs for things we should be focusing on as an institution. So I appreciate you bringing them forward as part of your goals for the year.
Great. So let me skip to the next one. The port's essentially working on leveraging our strengths to create a more equitable and prosperous region. I'd say that this is the item that has changed the most in the last year. Last year, the team was, I think, rightly really focused on the river and advancing our position in the cleanup, and trying to provide some leadership in advancing the port and the region on river cleanup. We are really now, in particular with the pandemic and an economic recovery that we hope, again, will be quick, but usually is not, and an increasingly visible and I think thoughtful conversation around equity. We are really thinking about how we look at everything that we do and evaluate its impact on outcomes in the region. So that is really what this action item, these action items are about. First, doing a bit of review of our own strategy, figuring out where we are sitting on our laurels versus where we have opportunities to really get better and increase equitable outcomes in the region. Second, really engaging externally. We have some great partners and stakeholders that have helped us in the past and provide ongoing guidance to us. We really want to be a part of this development of a recovery strategy around infrastructure, around funding development and people to get back to work, and evaluating and participating in proposals in the region that really expand that economic recovery. I think you've heard me talk in the past around how the port was created in the 1890s to deliver products essentially owned by wealthy, all-white Portlanders, all-male Portlanders, and in some ways, that's the model that persevered for 130 years. We really need to look at how we spread the benefits of the port to more people, and how we use what we have, our port strengths, to increase outcomes in the region, especially for those who've been left behind in the past. And then finally, third, really focusing on the value of trade and traded sector jobs that historically have really produced higher than average incomes and created business opportunities for especially small and medium-sized businesses in Oregon. We'll continue to work with Oregon manufacturers and growers, farmers to make those connections and develop as a region. So let me stop there on number 3, Madam President. Any feedback or thoughts?
I'll just say, Curtis, I think, this is obviously vitally important and will probably be among the hardest of the goals that you'll be working for this year and moving forward. Clearly, with both the pandemic and the economic effects of the pandemic, the disproportionate economic prosperity, if you will, in our region is going to be exacerbated, and I think it'll be hard work to make this goal. But we're behind you in doing it for sure.
I would, I'm sorry, somebody else was chiming in. Let me step back.
That's okay, Michael, go ahead. I'll go after you.
Okay, I was going to say that I agree with the Madam President's comment, and I also would point out that there are times when the objective around advancing a more equitable and prosperous region and the port's objectives will interchange. I had the opportunity to sit on a working task force with Metro on infrastructure development around transportation projects, and there was certainly a set of primary goals that the port had, but they were enhanced by being able to embed them within the objectives of community-based organizations as well. And as I mentioned to you back then, one of your team, Emerald, I thought did a wonderful job of taking the beliefs of the port and placing them within outcomes that were going to be directed specifically at community access to safe transport across some of these corridors. So, it's not I think we can not limit ourselves to the objective of it's one or the other. Quite often it's and I hope that we'll continue to sort of distinguish ourselves in that way.
Great, thank you, Michael.
Thank you, President and Commissioner Alexander. This is Meg Nemi. I also just want to reiterate, I feel like these are really important goals. I think as we build back better, as we really imagine how is the port a driving engine in our economy throughout Oregon and the metro region, I think this is going to be really important. I think it's also really important to just call out, and here it talks about historically disadvantaged Oregonians. And I think we really also need to have a focus on people of color as part of that recovery and what we're doing. And so I'm glad to see it on your goals. I look forward to working more on it with you.
Terrific. Thank you, Commissioner.
Any other feedback for Curtis on this goal? Okay.
Okay, so why don't we go to the last one, if we could. Again, personal development objectives. These are really about my own desire to develop as a leader and as a professional. As I think you all know, I also ask my executive team to do this for themselves, to share with me how they hope to develop as leaders and professionals. I really hope the port is a place where people are able to do the best work of their lives. And so for me, this is part of my own trying to do the best work of my life. So these 4 items are really about, I think, first and foremost, getting us through this pandemic and economic crisis. First and foremost, maintaining calm, but also our culture. And as I think everyone knows, oftentimes these jolts to the system do long-lasting damage to culture. And I sort of think that this needs to be a priority of mine to maintain this transparent, thoughtful, performance-driven culture that also relies on safety and on equity for its success. want to include that as part of my own personal objectives. Second, really trying to get the balance right with my executive team on key strategic questions. I do want to push as many decisions as possible deeper into the organization and trying to figure out how that works and getting that, as I note, the sort of the balance or the feel right, something I want to continue to work on. Second, as I noted at the outset, really help my team become better leaders as well, help them stretch and grow as professionals, but also give them feedback where helpful to help them improve and recognize their successes. And then finally, prioritizing equity and safety and learning culture with our whole team. It's one of my favorite parts of the job is just engaging with all the great people at the port. And I think that just needs to be a part of my day-to-day. So I've listed all of those here. Happy to take feedback on those now, Madam President.
Thank you, Curtis. I appreciate that you've centered folks that work for you here. I think that's, again, really important part of leadership. Other commissioners? Okay, Curtis, do you want to wrap up for us?
Yeah, well, as noted, these will be, we'll make the few sort of build back better, I think I heard, and I'm happy to add, if the commission would like that way, I'm happy to make the adjustment on disadvantaged communities, focusing on people of color or communities of color. I think that's a good piece of feedback. And then I'd suggest, sort of, I guess I'd be seeking your approval as adjusted to these objectives, and I'll report back to you. Obviously, we'll discuss them throughout the year, but we'll have this conversation next year, and I'll work with these objectives with my executive team to make sure we cascade them throughout the organization.
Thank you. So with that, I'll call for motion and second to approve the executive director's performance objectives as revised based on Curtis' presentation this morning.
Yeah, I was so moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, or additional discussion? Okay, Pam, if you could lead us through the roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Alexander,
Aye.
Kuprokomis,
Aye.
Lamb,
Aye.
Levy.
Aye.
Is Commissioner McDonald on the line? No. Commissioner Nemi,
Aye.
O'Halloran,
Aye.
Pierce,
Aye.
Saruda.
Aye.
Thank you, Pam. With that, our meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.
Take care, you guys.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank
Thank you.